Hello and welcome, friends and fellow artists. My name is Cassie, and this is the first video in a series that I will be doing, showing you step by step how to do some art projects that I hope help to calm and center you in a very tumultuous and difficult year. I think we can all use a little bit of self-care. We can all use some time to slow down and take care of ourselves and just relax a little bit. And it's my hope that these videos will help you do that. We will be focusing on nature as a theme. I think nature can be so healing and so relaxing. Many people like to sit outside and enjoy the sounds around them, the birds chirping, feel the breeze. So these art videos will help you to connect to nature as a way to relax and unwind. And they will be using materials that you likely have around the house or can easily obtain. So today's art video, we will be making painted stones, and we will be learning a grounding technique. So grounding techniques are used as a way to come into the present moment. A lot of anxiety takes you outside of yourself, either thinking about the future or worrying about things that happened in the past. So grounding is a way for you to come into the present moment and help to control those emotions a little bit. So I'll be teaching you a grounding technique using a short little meditation, and we will be making painted stones today. So I will include a list of materials in each of these video descriptions so that you can kind of get an idea of what you need to make each project. Each one will be different. And I will also pull up a little image of my materials that I have set out for us today. So first, I chose a stone from outside. It's just a round stone. It's about the size of my palm. You want to choose one that is large enough that you can paint an image without too much fine detail. So this is the one that I chose. Again, it's about the size of my palm. It's circular. You can choose any shape and size that appeals to you. I like the weight of this one. I feel like it fits nicely in my hand, which is important for our grounding stone because you're going to be holding it as you do the meditation. So this is the stone that I chose. I also have just a few colors of paint. I have green, brown, yellow, and white. My white is big because I need a lot of white. So you'll like to gather your paints. You can use tempera paints or acrylics is what I'm using. I recommend that if you want it to last, if you're going to be putting it in your garden or something, you're going to need a more substantial kind of paint. I wouldn't use watercolors as they're very runny and difficult to control, and they won't stick so well on the surface of the stone. So I really recommend either tempera paint or acrylic paint like I'm using today. I have two brushes here. You can see a very small little guy and a little bit bigger. So I have two paint brushes. I have my little water cup. I have a rag to clean my brush. I'm also going to be using a marker. As you can see on the example, I have some writing on the stone, and that is much easier to do with a marker. So I'm using a paint Sharpie, but you can use a regular permanent marker as well. Those will work just fine. And I also am using a little sheet of palette paper. Wax paper works great for this as well if you don't have palette paper, or you can use a paper plate or a scrap of cardboard, really anything just to put your paints on as you're working. So those are the materials, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now I want to use the yellow here. I'm using yellow ochre, and it's kind of a darkish yellow tone for the flower. Now you can use really any imagery that you like. You can substitute materials for what you have around. I'll be giving you step-by-step instruction using what I have, but feel free to take creative license here. This is your project. This is going to be your stone, and you can make it any way that you like. Now I chose a sunflower as my my subject matter here, and that is because sunflowers have relatively deep and strong roots, and that is a great symbol for what we're going to be covering today in our meditation. Feeling rooted, feeling grounded, feeling solid and stable in your environment. That's kind of what we're going for here. So I chose a sunflower because they have very deep roots. Other kinds of fruits or vegetables that might be a good choice if you're trying to stick along the same theme might be pumpkins. They have great root systems that kind of hold them in the earth. Trees, of course, have very deep and expansive root systems, so a tree would work wonderfully. Tomatoes and shrubs all have relatively strong and deep root systems that are great for this. So we're going to start by painting the petals of our flower. So to do this, we're just going to do kind of an eyeball shape here. So starting out at a point, curving around, and coming to another point. And we are going to do that again on the next side to close the shape and fill it in. So there's our first petal, and we are just going to work our way around kind of a circle here, as sunflowers are. We have these beautiful yellow petals that come from the middle here. So we will fill those in one by one, and you can leave some space in the middle for those sunflower seeds. They're a great snack, aren't they? I like sunflowers for this particular project as well because they're nourishing. We can eat their seeds. They grow very tall, don't they? Sunflowers get enormous sometimes. Taller than me. So we'll just work our way around. You can do as many petals as you like. It's kind of up to you as the artist to decide how large you want your flower to be, but we do want to leave some space underneath the flower for the stem and the root system. Now I chose a circular rock because working within a circle actually is very calming. The circle in many situations kind of is a good representation of wholeness, of fullness, of being satisfied. Our brains like circles. They can make sense of them easily. They're a great way to understand the relationship of parts to the whole. So I like working with circular shapes here. But as you could see, my example stone, if you want to compare the two, is not a circle. This one has kind of a cute little contour along this edge that really fits into my palm. So you can see my thumb kind of fits around it easily. It's easy for me to hold. So any shape of stone that appeals to you is wonderful, but circles have an extra little therapeutic bonus, if you will. So as you can see, I have the petals of my flower all filled in here. Okay, so I am going to put some brown paint onto my palette here. I'm using light brown acrylic paint. And if you'd like to clean your brush, I dip mine, kind of swirl it around, and then I wipe it on my rag here to clean the water off, and it's ready for the next color. So I am going to dip my brush into the brown paint, and in the middle of these petals, I am going to do little dots of brown paint. So I'm just going, they call this stippling, or pointillism, when you do it with pens or markers. We're going to do the same idea here, just little dots. As you can see, they're just small dots to fill in that space between each of the petals. Now you could do this as a pattern, kind of starting from the outside and doing a spiral pattern to fill in the middle, or you can just do dots willy-nilly. It's up to you. It's one thing I love about art is that everybody's technique and everybody's approach is going to be a little bit different than the next person's, and that's what makes it their own. So please don't feel that your art is anything less if it comes out looking different than mine, because it just means that it's your own unique creation, and that is a very good thing. Don't get too hung up about how your image looks, because remember that it means something. Alright, so I got my little dots filled in there, as you can see. Those are my sunflower seeds. That's all finished. Okay, so once again, I'm going to clean my brush here, swirl it around in my water dish, and dry it on my rag. Okay, next we're going to use our green. You can use any color green, honestly. This one's called Hooker's Green. It's a dark color green. And this is going to be used for the stem and the leaves of our sunflower. So once again, we have this space underneath the petals of our flower. We're going to bring our stem down, but not all the way to the bottom of the stone. We want to leave some space because we're going to include the ground and the root system underneath it. So we'll stop about a third of the way. We'll leave a third of the stone underneath that stem so that we can fill that in. So you'll take your small brush, dip it in that green, and we're going to do a line coming down from the petals and stopping about there. So we have some space underneath to do the ground and the root system. And now to make the leaves, we're going to do a similar shape to the petals. So we'll kind of start pointy, do a curve, and come to a point. Just like we're kind of making an eyeball again. And we'll do that again on the other side. So pointy, curve around, and come to the point there. And then we'll just fill that in. Sunflowers have big leaves as well. I love sunflowers because they're kind of this larger than life plant. Everything is big and bold colors. They're just beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to make another leaf on the opposite side of the stem, so it'll be coming out this way. And depending on how long your stem is, will kind of determine how many leaves you need. You'll just follow that stem and add them all the way down. I can only fit probably, maybe I'll do 3 leaves here. Alright, so I'll do one more along this side. And then we'll give it some ground to stand on. There. Okay. So as you can see, I got my stem, I got my leaves. I'm going to clean my small brush. There. Dry it. All right, wonderful. Now we are going to use our bigger brush. So I'm switching. Now this is still a pretty small brush. I'll show you relative to my finger. So it's still relatively small because we're working on a small canvas, right? Our stones are not very big. But it's definitely thicker than the brush that I was originally using, which is more of like a little detailed guy. So I'm switching to a bigger brush. And I'm using that brown paint that I already have on the canvas. You can't really see it. There we go. I'm using the brown paint here. And we are going to put some soil underneath that flower. So we'll just come along the bottom, right up underneath that flower, and we'll fill in some soil. Now we're going to want to work on top of this paint, so laying it on thinly can kind of help to get it to dry quickly so that we're not smearing and mixing paints. Acrylic paint dries pretty quickly, and so does tempera. So if you're working with either of those kinds of paints, it won't take too long for your ground to be ready to work. If you are using oil paints, those take forever to dry. You'll want to come back to this video probably the next day or two, and then it'll be dry. But acrylics and temperas, they don't take very long. The thicker you lay it on, the longer it'll take to dry though. Okay, so we have our ground filled in. Wonderful. While we let this dry, we're going to clean our brush here. We're done with our bigger brush. Wipe it on this rag here. And we will give our acrylic paint a few minutes to dry while I talk a little bit about grounding as a technique. Now, it can be very helpful to come into the present moment by using your 5 senses, and that's what we're going to think about today. So the grounding technique that I have planned for us is going to use our senses and that sensory information of the environment around us right now to come into the present moment. So on the back of our stone, and I will list this in the description below so you can copy it without having to keep pausing the video and writing and pausing and writing. But on the back of the stone, I have these words written. and I will explain them in the context of our meditation in a little bit. But we are going to think about 5 things that I can see. So I'm going to look around my environment, the room that I'm sitting in right now, and I am going to just name 5 things that I can see. The next step is 4 things that I can feel. So that could be a nice breeze on your skin or the chair underneath you. You'll think about 3 things that you can hear in your environment right now in this moment, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So by doing that, going through that process of just simply looking around you, taking in the sensory information of your environment right now, right here, that can really make a huge difference when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling irritable. Those are the times that using a grounding technique can be really beneficial. And you can do it anywhere at any time. That's why I love this technique. You could be sitting in your car, you could be sitting in bed, you could be at the dinner table, really anywhere. So that is a very useful tool, in my opinion, when you can take it and use it when you need it. So anytime you are feeling kind of overwhelmed, unstable, upset, you can start thinking of these different ways of relaxing yourself and coming into the present moment. That's what we're really going for. All right, let's see. So my paint is dry here on the bottom, as you can see. I don't have it coming off on my finger, so we are ready for the next step of painting, and then I will lead you through our meditation, which is really my favorite part of the whole thing. So we'll take white paint, put some out on our palette. We don't need a lot because this is just being used to create our root system. And I really love that imagery of being solidly planted where we are, rooted or grounded. It's just a great metaphor for kind of relaxing and feeling secure where we are. So we're using that small brush again, that little detail pointy brush that we started out using, the small one, and we're using the white paint. And we are looking here where the stem meets the ground that you created. And we are going to come straight down from that stem with our first line, just right straight down. Now what I learned in researching this project is that sunflowers have a specific type of root system that has one main root that reaches down into the ground, and then that root has little branches that come off of it. So it's one main line, which is what we're going to create first here, coming straight from that stem down into the ground. And then we're going to come from one side and then the other, just making smaller little lines to create our root system. Again, you can add as many or as few of these little roots as you would like to. They could be wavy, they could be straight. I'm making mine kind of curved a little bit towards the edges, but it's totally up to you, and it will depend on the shape of your stone. So just work with what you got and think about how you want this little flower to be secure in its home here. There. So we have our roots. I'll add a few more little details here. I like details. There. We have our flower, our root system, goes down to the bottom of the stone. I'm going to clean my brush here. Now it's up to you if you'd like to include writing on your stone. I think it's helpful, especially in this case where we are thinking about this art piece as a tool as well. You know, you kind of hold it as you go through the meditation. You can read it. It's a good visual reminder to have the words on it, I think. But if you just want to go straight with your image, then you are finished. If you want to add the words, we're going to do that now using the markers that we have set out. So mine is a paint marker. It's an oil-based paint marker, so I got to shake it up here. And I have chosen the phrase "stay grounded" for my first example stone here. So I'm going to use that same phrase, "stay grounded." I think that's a good reminder to utilize this grounding technique or this meditation as a tool to help me in the future. And since I have a very circular stone, I'm going to write the words kind of along the edges here. I'm using a blue marker because it reminds me of the sky, and I think it kind of fits well here behind the flower with our nature imagery. But you can use any color that you like. Definitely use something that will show up on the stone that you'll be able to see well. So if you have a darker stone, you might want to look for a paint marker that is a lighter color like white, or you can always use metallic Sharpies. Those are really great on dark surfaces. But my stone is pretty light, so the blue should show up really well on this. So I'm just going to write the words "stay grounded" on the front here. And if you feel more comfortable using a pencil first or something a little less permanent to kind of lay out those letters, by all means you can do that before you choose to write on your stone. That can be very helpful to lay things out first, but please don't feel like it's necessary. This is a tool for you, it's a reminder for you. So if this works, if you can read it but nobody else can, then it's doing its job. And if you make a mistake, you can always come back in and cover it up with some paint. That is what I like about painting. You can kind of rework areas that don't go as planned. Okay, so I have my reminder here written along the outside of my stone, "stay grounded." And we are going to do the meditation. So again, I will include in the description below the different steps of this meditation if you would like to write them on the back of the stone like I did with my example here. You are more than welcome to. I think that is a great way of going about it because then it is right here and you don't have to remember, was it 5 things I can smell? Was it 4 things I can hear? You know, it's kind of a lot of information to remember if you're not used to practicing it. So it can be very helpful to write that down on the back of the stone. That way you have it for easy reference. But if not, that's okay too. Just keep practicing the technique and it will be like second nature to you of becoming more aware of your environment, and it's getting the job done either way. So we're going to hold the stone now in our hands. Of course, be careful if you have any wet paint, not to get that on your fingers, so you might want to have just an open palm with the stone resting there. Find a comfortable position in your seat. It can be great to have your feet flat on the ground and your back against the seat that you're sitting on. We are going to take a few deep breaths in and out. This is another great way of calming yourself, feeling more centered, is taking deep breaths. So we'll just do another one, in and out. Good. Now I want you to look around the room that you're in. Get a good idea of what's around you. Turn your head, look over your shoulder. Come back around. Look over the other shoulder. Notice what's above you. It's on the ceiling or in the sky if you're sitting outside. What's on the ground or the floor. Just look around you. If you're doing this activity or this meditation without your stone, I want you to look in your environment and name 5 things that you can see. But since we're using our stones, I want you to focus on the image that we just painted here. And we're going to name 5 things that you can see. Okay, so first, I see the blue lettering that says stay grounded. That's 1. I can see the yellow petals of the flower. That's 2. I can see the brown seeds in the middle of my flower. That's 3. I can see the long green stem reaching down to the ground. That's 4. And I can see the white roots that are reaching down, holding that flower secure and steady where it is. That's 5. Very good. Let's go on to the next step. 4 things I can feel. 4 things I can feel. So first, I feel the stone resting in the palm of my hand. It's heavy. It's in my left hand. Noticing these details is really important. So that's 1. The texture feels chalky and dry. Feel your stone. Is it smooth? Does it have sharp corners, or is it rounded like mine? That's 2. I can feel the chair underneath me, supporting my weight. I feel secure in this chair. I don't feel like it's going to topple. It doesn't have a little wobble to it. That's 3. And I can feel the floor underneath my feet. If you're wearing shoes, maybe you can feel the shoes pressing against the side of your feet or on your toes. Feel the floor beneath your feet. That's 4. Very good. On to the next step. 3 things that I can hear. Now the rock, the stone that we painted, doesn't make much noise, so this is going to depend on the environment that you're in. But I will give you some ideas here, and I'm sure that we can come up with 3 different things that you can hear. Notice any background noises. So for me, I have the window open behind me, and I can hear birds chirping. I can hear crickets. I can hear the traffic in the distance. Notice anything you can hear, anything at all. Are others talking? Are you in a setting where there's other people around you? Or maybe in another room and you can just barely make out muffled talking? Do you hear any dogs barking? Are there any animals around you that are making sounds? If you can't, I want you to take a minute, take a deep breath. Did you hear the air coming in through your nostrils? or leaving your lungs through your mouth. Do your best to name 3 different sounds that you are aware of right now, right here. Good. We'll move on to the next step, which is 2 things that you can smell. So again, we're not in the same place right now, and this is going to depend on every environment, but I'm sure that if we think about it hard enough, we can name 2 different things that we can smell. So think about, is it close to mealtime? Can you smell any food cooking? If you're outside, can you smell any of your neighbors grilling? This is summertime, so typically around dinner time you can smell somebody's grilling outside. Can you smell the scent of the paint that you used? Or the markers that you used? Sometimes they have a strong odor that you can notice. Since we are using art materials in this project, you might be able to smell something. This one's dry, so you can't really smell much. But you can always acknowledge any bad smells that are around you too, even though they're unpleasant to notice or think about. Often they are part of our everyday environment. So noticing them also brings you into the present moment, and that's okay. Name any smells that you can smell. The point is that you're identifying them. You're noticing what's around you, and that is bringing you into the present moment. All right, and the last step here is naming 1 thing that you can taste right now. Now that might be difficult if you're not eating or drinking anything, but if you are, notice the flavor. If you're enjoying a cup of coffee while you're making some artwork, notice that rich coffee flavor. Or anything that you're eating. Are you chewing gum? Are you sucking on a piece of candy? Notice that taste. Also, if you haven't eaten or drank anything for a while, maybe you can still taste the minty freshness of brushing your teeth. Or if you're wearing chapstick or lipstick, you might be able to notice a taste of that. How is your mouth feeling right now? Notice it. And if there's nothing that you can name, it might be a good time to go get yourself something to drink. Get a refreshing drink or a snack from the kitchen, or pop a piece of gum in your mouth and notice those flavors. And that is it for our grounding technique. Pretty simple, using our 5 senses to notice what's around us, to take in our environment and bring us into the present moment where we are feeling less stressed, less overwhelmed, and more at peace. I hope that was helpful for you. If you found that interesting or that resonated with you in any way, I do encourage you to keep practicing that technique. The more you practice it, the easier it is both to remember the steps as well as to come into the present moment and feel those effects sooner. So I definitely encourage you, put this stone in a place where you will see it as a good reminder to yourself to stay grounded. Think of yourself as that sunflower with supportive roots surrounding you, holding you steady even when the wind is blowing and the storm is raging. You're strong in your support and where you are. You have resources to nourish you. Thank you so much for joining me today on this little meditation and art making journey. I will be posting another video with another project shortly. And if you feel so inclined, please visit my walk page. I am doing this project in kind of tandem with my fundraiser for the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is in September. So you'll see these videos popping up before the walk, and I hope to continue them afterwards. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. Bye.